Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We hear a ton about AI in the news, right? And it's usually framed as either pure magic or some wild sci-fi movie. But today, we're going to strip away all that hype. We're going to look at this technology through the practical, totally unvarnished lens of an AI researcher. We're diving into the massive, messy reality of what it actually takes us to build, deploy, and govern these systems. Let's just jump right in.
I want to kick things off with this brilliant quote from AI engineer Chip Huyen. She writes, "Nearly every book treats AI as a model problem. This one treats it as a systems problem." And honestly, that perfectly captures the massive gap we're exploring today. In a pristine, quiet research lab, a model works beautifully. It's great. But the second you try to deploy that prototype into the chaotic reality of the real world, it's an entirely different beast.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Sandbox versus Reality. The day-to-day life of an AI engineer is really a tale of two totally different worlds. In the lab, building models is this highly controlled, almost peaceful process. We've got curated data, we're tweaking parameters, we're aiming for theoretical metrics. But practical adoption? That is a battlefield. Think about it. What happens when your pristine model suddenly gets hit with 10,000 completely unpredictable user requests in an hour? I'll tell you what happens. Data pipelines break, latency spikes, you have to manage hallucinations in real time, and you've got to do it all while staying within some incredibly strict compute budgets. The whole engineering challenge just completely transforms. A huge part of that headache is just the sheer complexity of modern models. Take multimodal AI systems, for example. We're not just dealing with text anymore. These systems are technically astonishing, literally capable of weaving together text, images, sound, and video into these unified outputs. But as any of my colleagues will tell you, when you start combining sight, sound, and text, wow, the system becomes exponentially harder to control and predict in a live environment. It's like a giant puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape. And creating these complex models takes staggering resources. Look at this number, 50 million. That's the estimated number of kilowatt hours it took just to train GPT-4 in its initial sandbox. To put that into perspective for you, that is the equivalent energy usage of 4,500 average American homes for an entire year. And remember, that is before a single user ever typed a prompt into the system. So, moving right along to Section 2, Crossing the Production Gap. Which brings us to the million-dollar question that every single engineering team asks. Why do models actually fail out in the wild? Because let me tell you, the transition from our technical white papers to the gritty reality of business adoption is rarely a smooth ride. According to the Stanford Emerging Technology Review, present-day AI agents face some major limitations when they're left unsupervised. First off, they suffer from goal drift, basically forgetting their original objective and doing something completely irrelevant. They get stuck in infinite loops, just repeating the exact same action without any progress. They experience resource exhaustion, eating up massive computing power until, bam, they crash. And honestly, worst of all, users develop this severe over-reliance on them, trusting the AI even when it is actively hallucinating or, just fabricating information out of thin air. That brings us to this really vital insight from Wharton professor Ethan Mollick. He says AI isn't a tool your team uses, it's a thinking partner that thinks differently than humans. For any business adopting AI, this is a massive paradigm shift. You absolutely cannot manage AI like standard software. Actually, scratch that. It's more like managing a brilliant but deeply flawed alien coworker. You have to constantly verify its work, understand its bizarre blind spots, and gently guide it back on track. All right, let's zoom out a bit. Section 3. The concentration of AI power. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark talent drain we're currently witnessing. New AI PhDs are flocking to the private sector in droves, while academia is, essentially flatlining. Because the compute and data resources required to build these frontier models are so immense, corporate monopolies are effectively starving academic research by hoarding all the specialized talent. Universities simply can't afford the millions of dollars in compute time needed to stay in the game. And speaking of millions, how about billions? $150.79 billion with a B. That is the record-breaking amount of private cash poured into AI startups globally in 2024 alone. The sheer capital required to compete in this space is literally restructuring the global economy. As investigative journalist Karen Howe outlines in her book Empire of AI, this technology has a built-in winner-takes-most dynamic. The requirements for this new empire are just immense. We're talking 25,000 advanced chips just to train one single model. Then you have vast new energy infrastructure projects, like that proposed $500 billion Stargate initiative. And beneath all of that, the whole shebang relies on a massive, hidden workforce of human laborers labeling data. This incredible scale inherently concentrates immense power in the hands of just a few megacorporations that can actually afford the price of admission.
Which leads us directly to Section 4, Ideologies Shaping Global Rules.
To make sense of the global governance mess, we can look to Dr. Nicholas Lidströmer's concept of AI-dealism. AI-dealism basically refers to the underlying philosophical beliefs about what AI is, and more importantly, what it should be. The governance of AI isn't just some dry technical debate. It is a profound clash of political, cultural, and ethical values playing out on the world stage right now.
When we look at how this actually translates into real-world policy, we see a highly fragmented landscape. The European Union takes a very precautionary, safety-first approach. They are literally banning certain high-risk applications, like predictive policing through the EU AI Act. In contrast, the U.S. federal approach, particularly under the Trump administration's frameworks, leans heavily into an innovation-first mindset, so removing barriers, boosting national security, and preempting heavy regulations. Meanwhile, individual U.S. states like Colorado and California are stepping in with their own localized rules, which creates a massive compliance headache for researchers and companies.
And beyond regulation, there is the global geopolitical race. The two major superpowers are approaching the technology itself with completely different philosophies. The U.S. strategy is heavily focused on pushing the technical frontier, building bigger, more capable foundational models. The China strategy, however, is intensely focused on aggressive diffusion. They're taking existing capabilities and integrating them rapidly across manufacturing, education, and domestic sectors to lock in real-world network advantages. It is a fascinating race, raw technical capability versus widespread practical integration. Looming over all these differing strategies and fragmented laws is a pretty stark warning from experts like Eliezer Yudkowsky. The ultimate governance challenge really is this: can humanity coordinate to safely manage superintelligent systems? When competitive geopolitical and corporate pressures are pushing every single actor to move faster and take massive risks, achieving global unified coordination to ensure safety, well, it seems incredibly difficult, to say the least. So it really all boils down to this fundamental tension. What happens when transformative technologies outpace our institutions? As researchers, we know this science of AI. The parameters, the compute, the raw capabilities is moving exponentially faster than businesses can adapt their pipelines. And it's moving way, way faster than governments can draft cohesive laws. We are quite literally building the plane while we are flying it. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Looking at the gritty reality of broken data pipelines, hallucination agents, energy grids pushed to the absolute brink, and deeply fragmented global laws, are we building systems we can actually manage, or are we just fueling an engine we don't fully understand? It's a question every single researcher, business leader, and policymaker is going to have to answer in the very near future. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you next time.